1 year from today, the Winter Olympic Games begin in Beijing, but there are calls for countries to boycott those games. A coalition of 180 human rights groups is urging governments to not send their delegations over reported human rights abuses in China. Despite that, today the International Olympic Committee officially sent out its invitations worldwide.
We can all look forward to the great Chinese hospitality and efficiency of organization that the Chinese people have demonstrated so many times. Our Chinese partners and friends will deliver spectacular Olympic Winter Games that will change the landscape of winter sport forever.
Dick Pound is a Canadian member of the International Olympic Committee. He's with us from Montreal. Hi, Mr. Pound. Good to see you, and thank you for making the time for our program.
Pleasure. Good evening.
You and the IOC have publicly come out and said that governments should resist the calls for a boycott, or that those calls should be resisted. Can you lay out for us why you think that's the case?
Well, there are a number of reasons. One is that the Olympic Games are not an exercise of governments. The Canadian Olympic Committee is not an instrument of the Canadian government. The Canadian athletes are not employees of the government. And what our message is look, if you, the Canadian government, are mad at China, and for whatever the reason may be, you have all kinds of means at your disposal to indicate that disapproval, and you can arrange with other governments to do the same thing. But you don't want to do to Canadian athletes some of the things that you're basically accusing the Chinese government of doing to some of its citizens, which is to remove their rights and so forth. So it's counterintuitive that Olympic athletes should be the ones who pay the price for government dissatisfaction with Chinese conduct.
I completely take the point. I'm thinking from the perspective of athletes, of course, who have trained their whole lives and their whole careers to be there. And so I don't want to, I guess just setting it aside for a second, given the fact that, since the last time China hosted the Games, there's been an escalation in human rights infringements. And there has, especially where the case of Canada is concerned, there are 2 Canadians there detained right now. Are you empathetic at all to the push from those groups that are advocating for human rights, understanding the impact it would have on the athletes, but are you empathetic to the argument that they're making, that it might be seen as a bit of a free pass for China if our athletes are there?
Well, it's not a free pass, and needn't be. I mean, the Canadian government has all kinds of ways of expressing displeasure with China, and it can get like-minded governments to do the same thing. But the Olympic idea, and we have our own philosophy on that, which is you contribute to a better life for people if you can have these international competitions in a peaceful setting, and that the youth of the world gathers and can send a brief, perhaps, but nevertheless real example of how it is possible to get along. And so we don't want to give up that approach to our philosophical approach to what sport can do for the world. I understand the frustration of many of these other organizations, and don't doubt their bona fides or anything, but that's their problem, and they're looking to the Olympic athletes to try and achieve something that they can't. And we've done this before. We tried a boycott in 1980 over the Moscow Games, the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. It did nothing. Canada, while expressing all kinds of displeasure about what was going on, it did 3 things. It cut the air flights from 4 to 3 per week between Canada and the Soviet Union. It canceled a ballet tour, and it gutted our Olympic athletes. Oh, and at the same time, we sold more wheat that year to the Soviet Union than ever before in our history. So, and the Soviets were still in Afghanistan 10 years later. So in terms of bringing about conduct change, it was completely ineffective.
Are there any?
It's as if we said,
oh, pardon me, sorry.
It's as if we said, we're so mad about you treating your Chinese citizens in such a way that we're ineffective effectively going to take away all the rights of our athletes to show you how mad we are at you. And we're going to take away their right to freely express themselves.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think the other way of looking at it is we're so mad at you about the way that you are treating people in China that we are not going to send any signal of endorsement.
Right, and I think it's important to understand that the games are the games of the International Olympic Committee. They're not Chinese games. They're being held in China because China, in terms of the Olympic movement, is an important participant, even a leading participant, and they have demonstrated in the past that they are capable of organizing complex projects like the Olympic Games, and so that's why they're in China. That's why we chose China instead of Kazakhstan, which was the other candidate, because we were convinced they could do it better. We're not giving the games as Chinese games. The invitation to come to China doesn't come from China. It comes from Thomas Bach, who you just
heard from.
Yeah.
But before I let you go, Mr. President, I just want to switch topics, if you don't mind, and ask you about the Olympics that come before the ones in China. Are you? I read an article about your comments on feeling confident. I think you had said, "I'm 3-1 confident that things will go on," and that was at the beginning of January. Any concern, given some of the issues with vaccine supply right around the world and in this country too, now that might not be as sure a thing?
Well, we're February 4th. We've got a long time to go in the sense of how things are developed, how much more we're learning about the virus, the supply chains becoming a little more reliable, and the distribution mechanisms established. No, I would say I'm more confident. And 3-1 doesn't mean it. It really comes down to either or. And I'm quite confident that the necessary bubble can be created to make it a safe operation for the athletes. And in the end, that will be the consideration. So is it too risky to go or not?
And right now, if you were to make that assessment, what would it be?
Right now, I'd say that it looks very, very promising.
Okay, Mr. Pound, I'll leave it there. Thank you for your time tonight.
Anytime.
Hi, I'm Vassy Kapelos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.